You know, I've worked on the island for a long time now, but I've never seen anything like this. My name is Jason, an engine driver on the Northwestern Railway. I'm the driver of the number 5 known as James, and I thought it would be a cool idea to make a journal of my time here, and if anything strange were to happen. The railway is located on an island, so we tend to get a lot of mist and fog, but today is different. Today the mist is much worse than normal, causing most trains to be cancelled. The trains that haven't must run much slower, though Gordon hates this, but the other engines tell him it's for his and the passengers' safety for these conditions. At times Gordon isn't allowed to pull the express due to his speeds, leaving James to be the safest engine for the express. James is normally excited to pull passenger trains, but he's upset because no one will be able to see his paintwork. Recently a new research facility was built, but as of now Topham hasn't revealed their purpose, nor does anyone know what happens with them. My guess is that it was built due to the rumor of lost treasure on the island somewhere, with the ruins of the castle being found. Maybe there is treasure on this little island. I'll keep this notebook on me and continue if something interesting happens. Well, I'm sure you know something strange is going on as I'm still writing this. Last night when we got back into Tidmouth sheds, I saw Duck sitting in the far side of the sheds, but for a split second I swear he looked scared and was on the brink of tears. Worst of all, he only had one eye, but when I blinked, he was back to normal. This mist still hasn't gone away. Some of the engines are claiming they're hearing whistles from outside their sheds, but yet there is never any engine. Even stranger is that a new research facility was constructed right before the mist rolled in. We still haven't gotten any word from them explaining what their purpose was, nor the strange noise coming from within. James is still in a bad mood about the mist, but he was acting weird, asking if he had to pull his train today and that there was something strange in the air. Maybe this was about Duck. Anyways, we're about to leave for Vickerstown, but I do have to agree with James that something's weird about today. So much has happened, it's crazy. It's probably best to start from the beginning. While sitting at Knapford, James was talking to Edward. Edward was telling James to be careful with the mist, but James told him to bug off as he knew he was doing. The guard blew his whistle and we left. We sped down the line, but had to be careful as the mist made it hard to see. Reached Gordon's Hill, and I swear we heard the whistles of the other engines as well as screams, but there was no one there. James was struggling to get up the hill. He kept telling us it felt as though he was being pushed back. We came to a halt at the bottom station where we saw something horrific. It looked to be Emily, but her eyes were gone. All there was in their place was 2 black holes. It looked as though her face was faded. Worst of all, she was smiling and began to move, asking James to join her for her and Toby. Luckily, Emily got switched down the branch line at Elsbridge, and right now we're sitting in Henry's tunnel waiting for it to be safe. We were shocked to see Percy pull up beside us, and we were shocked to see James with all the people. He said he thought we were dead and couldn't believe there were that many survivors. He looked to be in horrible shape, the exact opposite to how he was this morning, as now he was covered in dirt and filth. He was on the verge of tears and couldn't believe someone else was alive and couldn't have handled being alone for another day. We questioned him, asking what he was talking about, as we had seen him this morning. He seemed to dodge this question, as he seemed confused on what we mean. We asked Brian, Percy's driver, what had happened, and he said the mist had changed people into monsters, and Emily is one of many. Brian said we should get the survivors to the mainland so we could be safe. We agreed, but decided to head back to Knapford to search for a new one. We also hoped Edward would still be there. We were heading past Tidmouth, I thought I heard Brian coming from one of the birds, but he didn't want to risk stopping and kept going. We soon arrived back at Knapford to take refuge for a while, and when we pulled in, we saw Gordon sitting at one of the other platforms with 3 of his express coaches. Strangely, he was missing his brake coach. The people in the coaches said they were going to escape to the mainland. Percy said they shouldn't just leave their friends, but Gordon said the monsters in the mist had gotten to them and they were dead. He seemed pretty upset at Percy, but didn't want to talk about it. He noticed James and gasped, saying that he could have sworn the mist had gotten him. James kept telling them he had no idea what was happening. All he knew was that he took a passenger train this morning and went over Gordon's Hill. That's when he saw Emily, Gordon and Percy didn't understand, saying that passenger services, as a matter of fact, no services has run since the mist arrived 2 weeks ago. We didn't understand how that was possible, as it was just mist, but decided to leave it at that for James' sake, as we could tell he was upset at what was happening. A while later, Gordon was about to leave for the mainland. Kids said we could come with them, but they weren't coming back for us if we stayed behind. Most of the passengers from our coaches went to Gordon's coaches, as he was much faster. Percy said he couldn't leave without the others, but we told him that they would want him to escape. He eventually decided to come with us, so we're going to head out. We were getting close to Elsbridge when we saw him. We were horrified. He was shrouded in mist, but that short, stumpy funnel and dome was all too familiar. yelling at us to not stop and keep going, but they paid no mind to it. Went after Percy. Sorry. The creature began to charge at Percy, telling him they had to go shunt some trucks. Percy begged, saying he didn't want to. He raced off with the creature hot on his tail. I hope he's okay. So far, no signs of Gordon or Percy. God, I hope they're okay. We're going to spend the night at Elsbridge. James and the remaining passengers are exhausted. We're going to make sure some people stay awake to stand guard. Hopefully, everyone is here tomorrow.
Charlie, hello, can you hear me? Please, Charlie, are you there? Sydney, please, anyone?
Oh God, Edward, not Edward Wyham. He's dead, everyone is dead. Why was I spared? I can't take it.
Now, Trevor, we don't know that just because Charlie didn't answer the radio doesn't mean he's dead. All right, Trevor, we'll be right back. We're going to check the house for supplies, then we'll keep going.
God, Edward, not Edward Wyham. Please get out of my head. Why are you doing this to me?
All right, Trevor, we're back. Wait, Trevor, what are you doing? Wait, dear God, Trevor, no.
Finally, I'll be free, thank you, Cole, for the wonderful life, and Edward, I'll be there soon. To the sound of screaming and ran out to see a man had stabbed one of the passengers. He had that same dark faded face as Emily and kept asking us to join them forever in torment. The guy he stabbed began to pulsate and move uncontrollably. I heard the snapping of bone, and his face began to fade. It was an awful sight. He then stood up asking his wife and son to join him so they could be complete. Phil picked up a piece of wood and stabbed the guy right through the head. He then proceeded to fade out into the mist almost as though he was part of it. It seems that engines are the only things that have been affected. We also saw that during the night the guards on duty were ambushed by these birds, or maybe even pterodactyl-like creatures. What the hell even is this thing? We decided the best plan was to keep going down the line and try to find Gordon, Percy, or anyone else. God, I hope we don't run into any more of those things. When we neared Gordon's Hill, we decided to check the express coaches that were derailed, and we realized there was a brake coach. Did Gordon lose at this train? I mean, he must have. He didn't have a brake coach yesterday. We didn't know how these coaches had gotten here, as they weren't here when we had originally gone up. We decided it was best to leave them be and keep going. While heading down Gordon's Hill, we were shocked to find a little old engine. He was damaged, broken, and he was almost out of coal. But the number 2 on his tender told us everything. He didn't say anything. He groaned in pain as he kept backing away from us. This whole thing must have taken a toll. And we made it to Marin, where we had originally seen Emily. We put Edward and James into a siding where Edward finally spoke. Apparently this all started about a month ago when that new research facility was built to research Sodor's past and recently found artifacts. Thomas was sent to help at the facility for a while till Topham could get a permanent engine. While doing so, Thomas began to act differently. He was always worrying and being clumsy. That was until the day it all went wrong. And 2 weeks ago the facility had been doing strange experiments that were yet unknown, during which Edward took a goods train to the facility where he talked to Thomas.
I don't like it here, Edward. Why is that, Thomas? Well, it's just I kept seeing these weird experiments going on.
But then strange noises were heard within the facility. The people within began to scream, and a massive roar echoed throughout the yard, and the fog sirens blared as the mist leaked out of the facility and spread all over Sodor. Edward tried to run, but the heavy train held him back. Thomas tried to help, but Edward told him to run. Edward slowly moved, and when he finally got a grip, he saw Murdage heading right towards the facility. Murdage hasn't been seen since. Some engines were transformed into horrible monsters, while others were lucky enough to be spared. Edward began to cry, asking why out of everybody he was spared. We didn't believe him and told him the mist never leaked from the facility and there never was a massive roar, and that everything was fine until yesterday when we were at Knapford with him. Edward stared at us with confusion. Knapford? I haven't been to Knapford in over a week. I don't know what to think anymore. He claims that the facility is the cause of this and that he wasn't at Knapford, but I've witnessed the exact opposite. The old engine has no hope, but James and the passengers who stay with us believe it will be okay. While on guard, I saw Toby rush past with Henrietta and 2 old branchline coaches heading towards Tidmouth. He didn't stop, most likely didn't even notice us as this mist had gotten worse. Why would Toby be running away from the mainland? Perhaps we'll head back down to Tidmouth and look for him. Edward said that they had a base at Brendam with a few other engines and a bunch of people, but they were attacked by 2 engines who put them through traps and games which resulted in the others' deaths. We might go check it out to see if anyone else made it. While sitting around we saw that engine again. I think I saw those 2 old branchline coaches along with Henrietta behind him begging for him to stop. They only confirmed exactly what it was. We made a plan, which was to leave half the passengers at Marin and head back down the line towards Tidmouth as Edward begged us, saying we had to check it out to see if we could find Toby or anyone else, then to Brendam. We arrived at Tidmouth where we found something, the remains of the only tram engine on Sodor, and that's when we knew we had lost Toby. His face was faded and looked as though he was screaming and crying blood, and worst of all, the wood above his face had been crushed, and inside his cab was worse. His crew was there. They were both stabbed by the pieces of wood from Toby's cab, and his boiler was the same too, dented and crushed. What could cause this kind of damage? James felt bad as he was rude to Toby all throughout his time on Sodor and never got to properly say he was sorry. Edward also began to cry, saying how it was all his fault and didn't deserve to be saved. We asked what he meant and how he knew Toby would be here. He said Toby was one of the few engines with him at the docks, and when they were attacked, Edward told Toby to run to Tidmouth and he'll meet him there. We told him it wasn't his fault and he didn't have to blame himself. We were about to leave when we saw Lever hiding amongst the trucks. He was babbling uncontrollably. He saw us, asking if we had seen Toad. We told him no, but that didn't help. We coupled a lever and continued down the line. We arrived at Tidmouth sheds to fill James' tanks, and we never thought to see what we saw. We heard crying coming from one of the berths. We opened it and we couldn't believe what we saw.